Good morning, April. Welcome to TFT13.
Thank you.
Speaker number 2, following the wonderful Karen Ferris. So we're looking forward to more great things from our Antipodean knowledge bird.
Yes, I listened into Karen's, so it's actually quite convenient that I come in after her because she gets a couple of mentions.
Yeah, she does. she does very well. But I'm sure there are a lot of people tuning in to listen to you. You're becoming very well recognised as a knowledge bird around the globe. So it's been quite a ride for you over the last couple of years, I think.
Yes, it has. But if you're listening live, hello. It's 11 a.m. here, so it's almost lunchtime.
And so April is joining us from the lovely city of Sydney in Australia, and I'm actually going to simply hand over to April to get herself underway, and you and I will chat again following the presentation. If anyone has any questions for April, please post them to the Twitter stream. Just use the hashtag TFT13. I will pick those up and pose them to April at the end of her presentation. So April, it's all yours.
Thanks, Kirsty. I'll just share my screen. So I'm talking about self-service. Self-service and support communities inside the enterprise more specifically. Enterprises, the modern enterprise is flatter in structure and it's more collaborative in nature, and IT teams must learn to leverage the knowledge of their user community. If the IT department is to survive and even thrive in the changing environment, then it must take advantage of combining those channels of enterprise, community and self-service. And more than that, good self-service requires a commitment to better knowledge management practices. I wanted to start with this picture because it's representative of the mood towards IT. And actually, this was my view for the last few years of my IT operations career. Beautiful big office windows in the bottom floor of the building, looking straight out onto rows and rows of recall boxes. The services staff who spoke to external customers as part of their job just on the other side of the doorway from us had the same beautiful big windows that overlooked the open rural countryside on two sides and the car park on the other. So it wasn't the best location in the world, but at least they had sunlight. Now, this isn't the exact photo I took. I actually had one. I foolishly deleted it only recently. But it's very close to what I looked at every day. And behind all those rows of boxes, in my case, was roughly 30 square metres of server room. IT being kept in the basement next to the server room is a relic of mainframe days, and we don't need to be in the basement anymore. But unless we take the lead on improving the situation, IT will be stuck downstairs with the boxes forever. So what can we do to claw our way out of here? You could probably say that self-service is the storefront to IT. And apart from any automated request mechanisms and service catalogues that might be available, it's also the first opportunity we have to relate to our internal customers through FAQs or help articles or whatever we might be offering. But I believe self-service can be more than that. I believe truly great self-service is a convergence of community management and knowledge management. According to HDI research, survey respondents recognise knowledge management and self-help are required to provide successful support. So let's just for a minute just consider the data of self-service alone. According to some research done by Nuance are the people who make drag and dictation software, which might be familiar to you. So this data isn't related to specifically enterprise IT self-service. But even still, it's a reasonable indicator of where consumerisation is leading. 75% of those respondents find self-service to be convenient. And 67% said they prefer self-service to speaking to a support representative. And after that, 40% then go on to calling support after they've looked for an answer via self-service. In the Knowledge Standard Support Practices Guide, where they talk about self-service, I'll link to that a bit later, as a general rule of thumb, if customers find helpful information 40 to 50% of the time, they are likely to use self-service again. And a mature KCS program, by the way, is said to return helpful information 80 to 90% of the time. So it makes sense that knowledge management feeds into self-service. But a part of knowledge management is understanding who else holds knowledge within the organisation and how we can help with the flow of that knowledge. If we look at some results from last year's HDI survey, we can see that we're missing a valuable piece of the puzzle here. Now, from elsewhere in the survey, we know that 3/4 of the tech support industry uses knowledge management tools, and the provision of some level of self-help has risen over the past year or so. But what about down here? Collaboration doesn't seem to hold much value compared to all the other stuff, even in an age where the technologies exist to help global organisations and remote workers to collaborate. With consumerisation and enterprise apps that are on the market, there are a greater number of departments outside IT procuring their own technical solutions to specific needs. You have an opportunity to become valued protectors through advising, enabling and facilitating rather than being avoided. Consumerisation, enterprise apps, BYOD are all bringing an increasing amount of complexity to the support game. People are bringing their own devices even if they're not sanctioned. They're using personal apps to do enterprise tasks, Dropbox, Google Apps for example. IT management is a hard job and it's becoming increasingly difficult to provide the levels of customer service that people expect while balancing that with business needs. Bringing a collaborative platform to the support environment enables your users to be part of the solution rather than being a cause of the problem. It enables them to help themselves and each other over issues like personal configuration of apps and devices and productivity tips. In last year's customer summits that Gartner held, they forecast that by 2014, we would see cost reductions ranging from 10 to 50% for organisations integrating communities into customer support. That's cost savings through ticket deflection. These are predictions for external communities, and the most successful industries are expected to be B2B software, consumer electronics and telcos. Gartner haven't provided forecasts for enterprise communities yet, but I believe they're working on it and hope to see something soon. But in the same time frame, Gartner also predict customer fallout to drive satisfaction down in 70% of organisations that shift customer support to communities. That's a big number, so let's look at why that might be happening. Often, collaborative technologies are adopted by a number of staff under the radar. Or the technology is rolled out as a, let's put this out there and see what happens sort of a deal, with no real goal and intended outcomes. And if there's no intended outcomes and no real goal, the executive either aren't aware it exists or haven't put their weight behind it because they don't know what purpose they're supposed to be guiding their employees toward achieving. And when I speak of governance, I don't mean control, I just mean as leverage for focusing action and resources that are needed to help keep the community program ongoing. Without resources and focus, there's no active management. No one there with a mandate to build and grow the community. With no strategy, there's no measurement by which to guide management efforts. And I talked earlier of the collaborative technologies being rolled out under the radar. If they do have executive sponsorship, the greatest amount of budget tends to go towards the tool and not the training and organisational change required. When another tool is added to the list of things an employee needs to be aware of, it's just another place they have to be. And if there's no strategic or practical reason for them to be there, then they won't use it. Do what you can to make your self-service community easy for people to find and use. Do an audit of what collaborative platforms already exist in the organisation. Ask your management peers what the staff members are using, if anything. If there's a corporate SharePoint, for example, think about how you can leverage that. Perhaps it can hold a list of your FAQs and then drive employees to your IT self-service solution for anything else. With tools like Yammer, SharePoint, Jive, NewsGator and lots of others, there's no doubting enterprise communities are on the rise. Anecdotal evidence supports that. But the Community Roundtable, they're a membership organisation in the US for community managers, are transitioning their State of Community Management report into a more quantitative look at what's happening in the community space in coming months. And I wanted to focus on one type of community platform for a little bit, and that's forums. Now, forums are not new. Forums are simply threaded text-based conversations. Facebook is forum-like in behaviour. It's forum-esque, if you will. YouTube and Flickr are forum-esque, but they're unmoderated and dreadful. As much as Facebook is forum-like, it's more of an activity stream. The news feed is an activity stream. And it's a more recent concept than that of the forum. Twitter is an activity stream. Yammer, Salesforce, Chatter, they're enterprise activity streams. You might have heard of the term social IT. That's an activity stream component of service desk software. But I don't want to focus on the label of social IT. It's a bit of a distraction, and the term suggests that you can enable it and the employees will be able to sort themselves out. That's not true. No matter what the vehicle for collaboration is, some level of community management is required for it to reach its full potential. I like forums because they're versatile and the topics persist for easy browsing at leisure. In terms of the internet, forums go back to the bulletin boards and Usenet of the 70s and 80s. In terms of history, the Roman Forum was a meeting place and the centre of public life in Imperial Rome for hundreds of years. It developed organically to meet the needs of the people, just like online forums should do. In 2000, Amy Jo Kim described the benefit of a well-managed forum in her book. They come for the information and they stay for the relationships. A community is really a group of people that form relationships over a common interest. A support community doesn't have that foundation. People come for their answers and they leave. But when you dovetail your internal IT support into an enterprise community, you have a high-value opportunity for operational successes and peer-driven innovation. Your community support platform, whether it's an activity stream or forum-esque, is a modern channel of business relationship management. Before we launch a community support program, we need to be sure of why we're doing it. It's not just so we can turn on another channel of support that people are talking about these days. There are goals that we must consistently work towards achieving, and they are an increase in ticket deflection, improvements in service delivery, and an increase in customer satisfaction. If we don't keep those goals in mind, we're just going to end up with a bleached white bones of a dead online enterprise community. So what can we measure to find out if our community is on its way to reaching these goals? There are a number of standard community metrics: daily active users, monthly active users, the raw number of members, posts per unique user, comments per unique user. But the one that indicates whether ticket deflection is succeeding is the forum views to ticket ratio. We want the forum views to be much higher than the number of tickets created in that time frame. Simply enabling a community platform isn't enough. Whether you turn on a piece of technology or whether you announce your presence on the existing company-wide platform, it doesn't just stop there. So let's look at a few of the skills that we need to enable this community support. The modern support desk must develop new capabilities to harness efficiencies that can come from great self-service forums. A modern service desk analyst is an author and editor. They respond to forum posts and they write announcements. They may edit those announcements and posts from others within the organisation. They bring knowledge closer to the customer by publishing answers to frequently asked questions. If they know an answer exists or there's some other related material that can help, they can find it. The modern support analyst knows how to classify forum content to help users find stuff quicker, and they can cajole users into better classifying their own content. They're transparent about service issues and tactful in tough situations. They communicate between users and technical teams and translate while they do so. And back the other way, they can thank a committed member for trying to help while giving the original poster the correct answer. If a user needs the expertise of an individual, the service desk analyst can hook them up. And if they don't know who that person is, they can crowdsource them from within the enterprise. You can help them locate experts faster by encouraging all staff to fill out their profiles on Active Directory or in their Yammer profiles or whatever it is that you're using inside your enterprise for that sort of thing. Great self-service requires the skills of a curator. The modern service desk analyst knows how to leave out the unnecessary and highlight the useful. They know how to direct attention where it's needed. It's a little PR, it's a little marketing, and it's a lot of crowd wrangling. They know how to keep driving attention back to the forums to raise engagement. And they bring the right people in to respond to unanswered posts. They encourage participation and appreciate contributions, and they bolster the network of ambassadors across the community. And you expect service desk analysts can already well analyse, but not only can they troubleshoot, they can spot trends within the forum and alert problem management and service owners. They can provide some level of sentiment analysis and report on forum engagement. But the good news is that you're part of an enterprise, so it means you don't have to do this alone. Leverage the expertise of other business units. You have HR for governance and the development of forum guidelines. You have marketing that can help you with PR within the organisation. Leverage the knowledge capital of your user community. Your internal customers don't always need an expert, but maybe they just need someone who knows more than they do. And leverage emerging frameworks. Knowledge-centered support for building knowledge within the self-service knowledge base. And balanced diversity that Karen Ferris just talked about for the organisational change that will be required. The important thing to remember is that this is a community of circumstance. The people that come here aren't here to talk about parenting or motorcycles or some other thing they're passionate about. They'll be coming because they happen to work here and they're having a tech issue that they might find an answer for. That means it'll need that much more intention on your part to make it work the way you want it to. But you want them to come here because it deflects tickets. You want them to come here to comment on issues other users are talking about because it adds to the organisational learning rather than being lost in the frustrated mutterings by the water cooler. Community management is a long game. It's an ongoing program of constant marketing and workflow reinforcement. Reminding users of self-service becomes a regular part of your communications with them. Invite users to participate in your IT community by sharing their BYOD, productivity or configuration tips. Even if they're wrong, their participation is a gift, so be thankful while you correct them. So let's consider how you can get this happening in your workflow. Assign someone from your team to be the community lead. This could be an assignment that rotates through the group on a monthly basis, for example. That person will be responsible for staying in touch with the users participating in the community by subscribing to relevant discussion groups or by setting up some other kind of notification. Set out your subject matter experts. When a user reports an issue in the forums, create a ticket and assign it to the team or individual that can resolve it. Make sure you've defined your service levels. What's the response time within the forums? What kind of priority do users or incidents get when a ticket is created from the forums? And just like your usual incident management channels, ensure the escalation path is well known. I've mentioned moderation, but with an internal community, moderation is not a major activity. Unlike a brand community, you're probably not going to have to be deleting posts for bad language and defamation or what have you. But marketing is something you'll consistently be doing. Establish a process for linking to your self-service community. Market your self-service forums as part of every interaction. When you respond to a ticket, include a link to the relevant article in the forums. You could link to your self-service forums via your intranet. Include links to the community support discussions in your email signatures. Pin popular user-generated posts to the top of your support forums if you have that functionality. Marketing, marketing, marketing. It's the only way you'll get your team out of the basement. And I just want to close with some salient points that this session covers. When you're working on incidents and problems or within your community, ask yourself, will this interaction benefit someone else? If so, add it to your corporate community knowledge base. Your organisation is your customer community, so help them to help themselves and each other. Treat your internal customers as partners in the knowledge network of your organisation. And surface those really great questions and helpful tips that your customer community generates. Highlight them so others will find them. The knowledge of your internal customers is valuable and part of the IT knowledge ecosystem. So embrace and encourage participation. What about self-service communities of the future? Consider the ways big data and automation can be exploited to improve our support relationships with our users. Predictive answers, automatic classification of knowledge based on keywords, for example. That technology already exists to automatically query the queries and provide a semantic clustering of new content opportunities that you can then write to answer those questions. The IT teams who manage corporate enterprise apps accounts already access online support forums and FAQs from those vendors, like Box and Google Apps. That's only going to proliferate. Our support communities will end up overlapping and interconnecting as our workforces become even more distributed and as we spend more of our technology dollars on cloud-based software. So what can you do next? Your organisation may not be big enough to afford a dedicated community manager role. So cultivate those who have a natural propensity to connect people to the information they need. Look for the connectors in the organisation and empower them to act within the community support environment. And include that community channel in your support workflow. There are a number of experienced community managers sharing information through blogs and Twitter, so follow the hashtag CMGR for some ideas. KCS, Knowledge Centred Support, I've mentioned that a couple of times. It's a powerful engine for driving good self-service. So check out serviceinnovation.org and download the practices guide and ease into some of those KCS practices that can help to drive a bit of momentum. And the other thing I would recommend, you know this is a significant change project. You'll be asking your IT department to adjust how they work. So following on from Karen Ferris, look into balanced diversity and the portfolio approach and change to get some tips on pushing through the resistance. So that actually brings me to the end. I'll quit out of my screen sharing and go back to Kirsty. I can't hear you yet, Kirsty.
Right now?
I've got it now.
Well done. So I mean, I was I mean, it is pretty new, the whole idea of these community forums and more of the self-help. I mean, certainly, it's a few years now since I was frontline on a service desk, and I can see, certainly in the organisations I worked in, there would have been an awful lot of resistance to people taking that self-help. I mean, it's probably, I was working mostly in the financial sector, and it was, they were extremely resistant to change in the organisations I was in. Stockbrokers just like things to work the same way. And the easier the better.
Yeah, so there will always be roles and industries where
yep.
self-service doesn't really work. I mean, I've also worked in support in the financial sector as well, and if a teller is having an issue with something, they've got a customer in front of them. They can't afford to spend time doing self-service, so they'll ring. So the phone is not going to die out.
No.
But there are plenty of people now in the workforce who have the opportunity and the ability to self-serve, and they want to self-serve, and having that ability can strengthen the relationship in the business.
Yeah, it's quite an exciting new career path, possibly for people who are on the service desk, who've got the right set of skills for community management, the curation skills, the personal interaction, and patience, I guess, is something that would help. So, if you were interviewing today for someone to take on a community manager's role, what would be the key skills that you would look for, Aprill?
Well, I would look for somebody, naturally in a service desk, you always want somebody that's personable. I actually don't think that they need to be as technical anymore as we traditionally look for. A good modern service desk analyst, as long as they've got the ability to quickly respond to the customer in the channel that they're coming through, and if that's on a forum, it's going to be replying in writing, obviously, so they've got to be able to communicate in a written way clearly, and being able to connect people. So connecting, whether it's connecting other forum participants with each other, especially if you know that there's a section of your user community who are, if you've got BYOD and you've got some Android devices and there's some Apple devices, and you can't know everything. It's just not possible. And I think the great thing about the embracing an enterprise community is that you can put the people in touch with each other that do all have Android, or they can help support each other with iOS stuff to do with their devices. So good connectors, good communicators, and they're able to understand the technical. They don't need to have the full background knowledge, but be able to translate that in a way that makes sense to their customers.
I've got a question here from our Twitter stream. So, in your experience, what type of organisations typically get this idea? Which type of organisations, industries actually really embrace the whole forum community self-help?
Well, the B2B software is where I spend a bit of most of my time at the moment, and I see it going quite well there. But inside the enterprise with internal IT, we're very slow moving in this respect, and the fact that Gartner don't even have numbers on it yet proves that if an enterprise can get onto this now, they're ahead of the game, and they're doing themselves a big favour. So I think enterprises should be having a look at what already is floating around in their organisation in terms of whether it's SharePoint or a lot of organisations already have SharePoint, and just being able to leverage the activity that's already going on there. So that's what I recommend. And B2B software has really got it nailed. They're doing it really well because it's a part of their strategy. It's part of their support strategy. So That's, you know, if you approach it with the strategy in mind from the beginning.
So do you see, I mean, from what I've been observing is the real push for BYOD and the more companies that are using it, that really seems to make this forum community support even more important, because as you said, you can't, when you're working in IT, you can't know everything. And certainly the IT departments I've worked in have been, shall we say, quite often a little bit anti-Apple. You know, they know everything about Windows, can make Windows do absolutely anything you want, but when it comes to someone asking a question about their Apple device, they'll throw their hands up in horror. But with a community forum working in there are going to be people out there who understand it. So getting that sort of support from your peers is probably going to be even more important the more BYOD we're dealing with.
Yes, and I can remember exactly that scenario when I was working in a credit union's IT support department, and we had on call and the ability to be able to run parts of our shift remotely from home on the weekends. And I had a Mac at home. Everybody else had Windows, and we were running Citrix, and it was fine for everyone else. And I had 6 years ago, I had drama setting up Citrix on a Mac, and nobody in the organisation was able to help. I had to actually Google, and I found the answer. And, you know, this is what people are going to be dealing with unless we can help them get on top of that.
Yeah, and I mean, no IT department can be expected to know everything about every device that their customers are going to be bringing in and using at work. So it certainly becomes a very valid way of getting support, is to be able to connect with your peers who are using the same devices.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just have a quick look at our Twitter stream again to see if we have any more questions for you in here.
And on the topic of KCS, I'm going to be working with Simone Moore to facilitate a KCS workshop in Sydney in July. So if you get in touch with me, I can give you some details about that too, by the way. Yeah.
No, very good. Excellent. Well, anything else you want to add, April, before we sign off for now? And,
I think there'll be on track 2 this afternoon in a couple of hours. There'll be a social IT session. So
yes, that's correct.
Have a listen to that one.
Great.
That should be interesting. Yeah. So I think that's Catherine Howard.
Yes, it was. Catherine Howard's presenting that in track 2 today.
Yeah.
Well done. You've
okay. Thank you.
2 speakers down and 22 to go for TFT13. Thanks for your time this morning. I'll just yes, as Simone said, Simone's just tweeted that there's no way she would have learnt without some of the great forums that she's been able to be involved in. I mean, I think in IT service management, I think most of us are making use of some great forums, and it's almost like having a real expert in your pocket when you can walk around with your phone and ask a question and suddenly have ITIL authors and real veterans of the ITSM world answering your questions within minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Self-service in every sphere has really opened up our eyes to the amount of knowledge that's out there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks for your time this morning. For you, was it still, or is it? Yeah, it is still morning for you.
Yes, it's still morning. Yeah, and you've got a decent break to go and get some food now.
Yeah, I will. It's past lunch time. My stomach is grumbling, so we'll be back in around 25 minutes with Sean McLean.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Talk
you.
To you again. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Introducing My IT from BMC Software. One quick download and the way your users think about IT changes forever. Let's say they need a networked printer, or a Wi-Fi connection, or even a map of an office they're visiting. My IT already knows where they are, and shows them a list of available resources and services pre-configured for their devices. Or maybe your user needs help with something more complex. With My IT, they can do most things themselves. But if they can't, they can simply schedule an appointment with a technician who can. In short, My IT is built to make your IT organization more modern and your users infinitely happier, dramatically changing the perception of your services